line chapter 13. After all this conquering material that ends with the list of all the kings that were conquered. 13:1. Now Joshua was old and advanced in years, and the Lord said to him, "You're old, yet much of the country still remains to be subdued." And he lists the country that still remains to be subdued, and it seems to be most everywhere. So we're going to find that the book breaks at 13, and a whole new picture emerges from 13 to the end of the book, that makes it seem as if all this was bravado here. That in fact they hadn't done what they said they were going to do. And that this picture of the first conquest is a little overblown, put it that way. And that there's going to have to be another conquest, and it's a much more gradual one, which agrees with the scholarly view that the conquest was more like an infiltration than an actual huge conquest, because you don't see the kind of destruction that you should see for these claims in this period. In any case, let's go back to the more aggressive picture here. He hanged the king, line 8:29, and he ordered his body to be taken down from the tree at evening. And he threw, and they reared another great cairn there, and it's still there today. The cairn is a big sort of funeral monument where people are buried under a rock pile. Right? So another one still there. Whether it really is what they say or I'll say that it's still there at their time for sure. Something's there, but whether it has the meaning they're giving it, or they're teaching it has, or it is, or it doesn't, that you'll have to decide for yourself. Anyway, he built an altar in Mount Ebal. Now, Mount Ebal is not anywhere near this where we are here. Mount Ebal is in Shechem. There are two hills that the book of Joshua will end with, Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. And Shechem is in the middle of them, and Shechem is up here. Well, they haven't even gotten up there yet. And pretty soon, this is a weird book, pretty soon, Joshua's going to be back in Gilgal. He's going to be back where he started, if I can find it. I'm not sure I can find it. But he's going to be back in Gilgal, and that would seem to be where his camp was. And he only seems to go up on forays and then come back. I think we'll have to probably won't get there this time. I'll do as much as I can this time. But I think, in fact, he will come back. But let's just see now what happens here. So anyway, he's supposed to have built the altar up in Shechem. We've had Abraham there. We've had others pass through there. We've had people building altars in Bethel. And now we have Joshua building one up in Ebal, which is Shechem. And here he wrote a copy of the law of Moses on stones. So there's a tradition that that shrine has another copy of the law of Moses. And this Joshua wrote as a copy of what Moses wrote, and that would be probably in the temple in Shechem, that would be a tradition involved in that temple. So this is, they all took their places, one in Mount Gerizim, the other in Mount Ebal, line 33. And Joshua read the words of the law, 34, as stands written in the book of the law today. And the Samaritans, by the way, still enact this between these two mountains of Gerizim and Ebal, because they take this very seriously. All right, chapter 9. This is the group that tricks them. They're not the Aites, they're the Gibeonites. Gibeon. Oh, there it is. That's what I was looking for. Look at 9:6. This seems totally out of place here. I would say what we just read goes later in the book. And what this is the next episode, that Joshua is in Jericho and after Ai, and the inhabitants of Gibeon heard that, and they came to him in his camp in Gilgal and made believe they didn't live in the country. You see that? Line 6, we come from a distant country. Please make a treaty with us, because we're not, we're like you, Habiru. We're wanderer people. We're we're intermediate sort of rating Abiru people. You know, we don't live in a settled way like these other people. Well, where are you from? Joshua says. And they sort of tell him and so on. And so they make a treaty together. And their wineskins were filled, and they give them sandals for traveling. And Joshua granted, chapter 9:15, the treaty, and the community ratified it. Now this is obviously a group of people still living in the country much later who say, we have a treaty of peace, you do not to attack us, and they probably have documents that they show that, in fact, we, Joshua, your leader, agreed that we would not be attacked. But when they found out that they were actual people living there, they were upset by this. In line 19 and 20. And so they let them live, but because of the oath that they had sworn. But they made them woodcutters and water carriers, sort of like an untouchable class, like in India. So they made them into a sort of servant class, you want to call that. And Joshua said to the Gibeonites, and so this is the explanation why we have a servant class here, or a class of obviously worker, woodcutter sort of people who are doing sort of service in the temple and other places. Why did you trick us and act like you were from afar when you live right here among us? Therefore you're going to be serfs, woodcutters, water carriers in the house of God. So these are like sort of people who are in the temple, who are kind of temple people whose livelihood is tied to the temple. And this is the tradition. That the reason was that they tricked Joshua. That's why they're living. But the other side of it is because they tricked him, they're going to be wood carriers and temple cleaners, water carriers to the present day. So Joshua made them woodcutters and water carriers and bound them to the present day to wait on Yahweh's altar wherever Yahweh might choose. So these people are always there in the temples of Yahweh. And the tradition is that's because they tricked the God. Tricked Joshua. I'm sure this is not a true tradition. But anyway, it's colorful. And it's the way people try to explain history. But these are the Gibeonites. Saul comes from a place called Gibeah. I'm not sure that there's any relation or not, but it may be. In any case, they survive, but they are put in an indentured situation. But look here. Others come and make war on them. Adonizedek,